everyone. Welcome back after the break. So this is a segment where we're going to discuss a little bit about all of the things we talked about since this morning. And in general, discussions of this type are like you ask the questions and then we talk about certain things. But I had an idea that today we're going to talk only about the visions for the future, which Vitomir this morning destroyed for us. Nonetheless, we're still going to ask you about futures of certain things. And I would love to start with Geert, so that you can tell us about what is the vision for the Indigo project, and as you mentioned, Indigo 2.0, because I think it's pretty important, even like regardless of the fact that maybe when in the future we won't be doing things in the same way, or AI is going to do everything for us. I think still this is one of the ways to preserve intangible heritage. I do agree with Vitomir that maybe in the future we are going to be exposed more to the real art and real walks and real people, because we're going to be overwhelmed with all of the things that are in digital format, but still digital format is going to serve us well in order to preserve certain things. So, yeah, please.
Okay, let me share my vision for the future. I will be rich and famous and no.
I sincerely hope so.
No, I mean, in terms of what we want to achieve in Indigo 2.0 is mainly the visualization of enormous data sets online, but just not in 3D, but really in 4D, so also the spatial and the temporal dimension. And there, I was just saying it to Stefan, if I would write now the proposal for Indigo 2.0, it would already be different than the proposal I wrote like 11 months ago. Because in the world of 3D visualization, really a lot is happening. And I don't mean by AI, but technologies to stream enormous data sets online. And this is, of course, if you have a small 3D model, not such a big issue. But if you have something that is like kilometers long, that has like billions of polygons, and that's also temporally changing. So yeah, there are many new technologies of doing this. And having said that, I think that, I mean, I completely understand and I agree with what you're saying. We are also looking a lot into AI tools, but I think that whether or not it will be a very sharp césure, so really like a disconnect, if this will happen abruptly or not, I don't know. But I think that in a lot of disciplines, it is still important, certainly in archaeology and I suppose also here, to make sure that what you see there is authentic and is based on something, right? For instance, if I have a photograph of a Roman temple and I say to AI, make me the entire temple, there is no archaeologist that will think that this is useful, because this is based on nothing. The AI, we don't know where this AI gets the data from. Whereas when I would discuss this with colleagues, we know, okay, we put there another column because in comparison with this temple, we think this is there. And in terms of graffiti visualization, if I would give, I mean, the example of Benjamin was very nice. He showed this fish. If we would just have the photograph of this fish and say to the AI, generate me now an environment, I don't know if it would generate a river below it or not. But yet, this is very important for this contextualization. So in this way, I think that we are not going to AI-generated content, at least not in Indigo. I want to visualize the real stuff, what is really there. And to do this in such a way that it is flexible on the internet, and this has implications not only for graffiti, but yeah, because I'm an archaeologist, one of the things is how do we visualize very big excavations or even a cathedral with all the intricate details online. So this is one of the main parts that we are further focusing on. The other part is semantics. So we are really delving more into metadata, temporal information, because this is one of the main parts that is also currently lacking in all these LLMs, or these large language models, is that sometimes they come up with whatever, because this data that they are sourcing is not semantically structured, which means that there are different technologies which are together called the semantic web, And these technologies allow you to say, okay, I state this here because this is based on this and this and this and this. So there are many technologies allowing this, RDF, knowledge graphs, all these things. So this is where Indigo is heading next, that we're trying to build an entire knowledge graph so that we can infer certain relationships that would otherwise not be possible, but also that we say, if we say, okay, this artist did this there for this and this reason, that we can trace back why we say this information, so that the complete thinking path becomes possible, so that we have a kind of path, that we have the entire inference path clear, so that we say, okay, this was visible this between this and then over painted by this, yeah, but okay, on which data is this now based, so that we know on which we base our analysis, because I think one of the main issues that will happen with all this AI-generated content is it will be very hard, as you also said, to know what is authentic and what is not. And a lot of big brands like Adobe are working on metadata to make sure that a photograph is really authentic. New cameras are coming out that are really digitally well, it's not digitally watermarking, it's in the metadata, a field that you cannot modify, that allows you to say this is authentic. And
yeah, I think it's going to mess up our analysis process really badly, unless we are able to distinguish between the AI-produced images and the real images. Because, like, you know, if I have a whole file document with one graffiti writer's pieces, and then I have something that AI produced, it's really not going to be so helpful. You know, it's going to really mess up with our brains badly unless we're able to distinguish.
Yeah, and then maybe a very last thing I want to say about this is also one of the things that we are thinking about in Indigo. You can write in the metadata if this data can be sourced for artificial intelligence training. Researchers from MIT found out that big companies like Google and Midjourney, they just say, fuck this, they don't even care, right? Because one of the main things that I would also like to avoid is that all these photographs are used as training material, and that one specific graffiti creator has its own style, and then this style you could say is copyrighted by this creator, right? But you can now just ask the AI, generate me graffiti in this style, and I don't know if I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree too.
We need to encrypt it.
Sorry?
We need to encrypt it. I mean, you can encrypt this and then give, you know, unlocking keys to a specific person, and then you can unlock it and look at it, and AIs cannot. I mean, if that's the point. But I'm just saying.
But it makes things a little bit, because the problem is also to get funding from funding bodies right now, all data needs to be open access. Right?
That means open access for bots to also,
I mean, because if I don't, for instance, to give you an example, if I could not prove to the funding body that all the Indigo data would be open, I would not get the last 50,000 euro of my project. Okay? So, and also when you write projects, everything has to be open, but the problem is with opening your data, you open it for everything. Another thing, for instance, that's maybe funny to mention is that also when I make this data openly available, I have to write an agreement that nobody in this photograph can be traced back, which means I have to mask faces, I have to mask entire bodies. If somebody walks with their dog, I have to mask dogs, I have to mask number plates. But the problem is when we take graffiti along the Donau Canal, I don't know how many percentage are faces of people, and I have software to do this masking, but it also masks the graffiti faces. So at the end of the day, I now have 200,000 photographs that I have to manually mask everything out just to make sure that I can put this data online. And these are all very big tasks that you initially don't really take into account. Yeah.
And they cost?
A lot of, yeah.
But kind of while you were talking, I was actually thinking about, you know, what we are going to attempt to do. And basically this heritage protection is not only about graffiti in our case, but I just talked to one of the colleagues from Belgrade International Architecture Week, who told me that in Block 45 they have plans to start building something else that is totally going to destroy the vision of the radiant city model that was made according to Le Corbusier's ideas, and that in Belgrade is like one of the best examples of this idea that actually worked out, because most of Le Corbusier's ideas didn't really work out because they were just too out there. Block 45 actually worked out, and so now we have to race against the time to kind of, if we want to do it, we have to do it before they start building all the, pardon my French, I said it, but I didn't really say it. So, yeah. So we really have to, race against the time. And my question to Vitomir would be, would it be actually possible to host something like as large as the whole block of 45 in the platforms? And would it be actually viable for your platform to do something like that? Because you said that now you're going towards AI, and probably only AI. Like, would it make any sense to do something like this?
Well, first of all, we need to change the approach to technology that we are currently using. I don't think that I myself and my people will have time to develop something like this, but there are, you mentioned crazy new tech that is in progress, and that's called Gaussian splatter. So by utilizing these kind of new ways to move from point clouds into visualizations that are actually working for very large data sets, that could be done. I don't think I have time at the moment to do something like that. I mean, to get into it and to work on that, because we were the generation, in the previous generation of tech, we were using polygons, and we were using, millions of polygons if possible. So the headsets, because our focus in 2021, we decided that we want to use mobile headsets, and the platform needs to be optimized for mobile, and not do a regular PC kind of VR, because we thought that, and I think we thought right, because you put the headset here, you put it in a backpack, you go to Paris, but nowadays with Gaussian splatter technology, I think this could be kind of, we can jump over polygons and move into these kind of point clouds. So in theory, what you're saying could be done, and I think it of course it's worth the effort. I don't know when I heard it for the first time now. So, yes, I don't know how things are moving in that direction, but anyway, knowing where AI is heading right now, I think it would be quite enough to take, just maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred of photographs from all possible angles, and then AI will be able to reconstruct everything from these photos in the future. So it's not like to worry too much if we take appropriate measures now. I even think that just by, having people that took the photographs in the past and kind of finding it online, or maybe even putting out the call for people to put their photographs, maybe we can get also that temporal moment that we can get, yes, that we can get the past and the current state of the architecture and street art there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to get Ben back to Belgrade as soon as possible.
But I think that Ben, I don't know. I think that Ben and also I partially do not agree, because the problem with AI is that if you take just a few photographs, it will create something, but you never know if this is accurate. And you only know this if you intersect this from two photographs. So I think if you talk to any photogrammetric department in the world, they would still say, shoot as many photographs as possible, because AI will be able to construct something out of it, but do we want to measure it and make sure that this was there? Or do we want to live with the uncertainty that, yeah, it could also have been this or maybe another window? We don't know what the AI made up really. So it depends on the goal really. Do we want to have something that is accurate, or do we want to have something that is I mean, visually pleasing.
Can I jump in? I mean, we are now slowly, but I like that. I want to bring out the topic of maybe philosophy or meaning into all of this. So I think that the cool thing with the AI and this rapid progress is that it kind of reminds us that we are also form of AIs, LLMs, literally like we are, doing the same basically thing, thinking of the next word we are going to say. And that creates a lot of questions that I think people were not asking before. Now it's much more closer to regular folks to ask questions that were maybe only available to others. Like you just said, like, okay, but what is the meaning of this, what we're doing? Like, do we want a visually pleasing thing? Do we want historically accurate thing? And why? Yes, but why? Why do we need that? I mean, because, so what? I mean, no one cares. That's the thing. So this is what I learned. Yeah, but basically no one cares. I mean, maybe there are like 5 people who care. Yeah, you care. Maybe I care. But it's, and I want to now go back, because I'm also an archaeologist, and to go back to your remark on temples recreated by AI. Crazy thing is that I've been doing historical 3D reconstructions since I was a little kid. Last one we did, yes, at a faculty of, yes, Kalemegdan, yeah, we did it in 2004. So that's been like 21 years of 3D reconstructions of cultural heritage. The thing is that the last one, by the way, we did for Užice, and that was done this year. So we kind of delivered, yes, the fortress of Užice. So it's not like something that I've done in the past. We've done it this year too. But what is crazy here is that when you're an archaeologist and going through the documentation that is used to create these reconstructions, this is more AI than anything else. Like it's a fiction. I mean, it's just archaeologists basically don't know shit. I mean, they know something, but most of the things they don't know. But it's not like they will tell you like we don't know. They will not tell you this. They will tell you like it was like this because I said it. Like the old guy with a beard is like, oh, I know, I've been there. I was doing the excavations in 1971, and then literally like this. So we've done these sites and reconstructions, and the documentation that was provided was such a disgrace, or how shall I say this? It's terrible. When you read the documentation, and then if you want to, from that documentation, to actually do a reconstruction of some form, we were even, at the time, 20 years ago, we were thinking that all the 3D reconstructions, I mean, this was one of my ideas, how to solve the problem of probability. Like, how probable is that the temple really looked like this, so that we can have, on 3D models that we reconstruct, we can have a layer or texture with gradients of color. So, for example, we have green is 100% sure because there is a wall in the real life that we scanned, and then we just slowly, as we go up, we can kind of present with gradients, how probable is the reconstruction. But still, it's just a probability, and that's why I'm saying, like, I think that finally that we are reaching a stage because this is the panel about the future, right? So we are reaching a stage where the past and the future blend, and we don't know what really matters. We are now exploring through AI and through this rapid change of civilization all the meanings. Because if AI can generate you a virtual world, then, like, what are we doing? If AI can answer all your emails, and be better than you in everything that you do, like, what are you doing? Like, what is the meaning of everything? So I think that time comes, and it's already here for some people, and it will be here for a lot of people when they start losing their jobs, when they start to rethink their existence because they cannot get a job. So what is the meaning of their existence? If I cannot get a job, if no one wants me, then what do I do? Because we were sold a story of how we should live our lives in the capitalist world, you know, with money and capital and everything, while you can go to the nature and put a seed of a tomato in the ground and the tomato will pop up and you can eat it. Crazy, crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the future...
Just say one thing to the AI future thing, because thinking about graffiti documentation, you said about metadata and where you're farming like informations and training material and stuff. And when documenting graffiti, I think it's always important that you think about, not about the graffiti community stuff, but also from the other side, from the criminal investigation side. So one day I think it could be possible that all this material can also be like the training material for police investigation, for example, and the AI will just compare if this graffiti style is like similar, the legal graffiti style is similar than something which was painted illegal. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when creating metadata, and also to document a lot, but not to say too much, or maybe hide some stuff of information, but...
Good point, good point.
Or keep it only for those people who are into it and know it, so...
Yeah, I actually wanted to say, like, yes, there is a problem, and we're going to face it probably relatively soon, but that is going to bring us to the fact, like, what do you love? What do you really love? And for us who love graffiti and street art, we're going to do that. You know, the graffiti writers and street artists going to produce their own stuff. We who like to enjoy it, we're still going to enjoy it. And then we're going back to this documentation process. So it's not that, like, I don't think what you're saying is going to happen. I just think it's going to happen in a way that is going to bring us back to ourselves, which means that we're still going to do whatever we love to do. And in that sense, I wanted to ask Stefan about the documentation, and I love that you brought this up, that we really have to be careful what we put in metadata, and we have to protect our graffiti writers, because we never know. Like at the moment in Serbia, you can do pretty much whatever you want. It's not going to be a problem. We don't know, however, in 10 years' time, if that's still going to be the case. So we have to get the biggest amount of information that we can get so that we can preserve it for the future, but we don't really need to give those information to everyone. And so my question to you would be, like, if you would be rethinking your internet site today, what would you do differently? I mean, you talked a little bit about that in your presentation, but like, would you elaborate a bit more?
Definitely. I think I have, in the last 24 years, it was rebuilt, I don't know, many times, but I don't know what to do different, maybe to expand it more in the virtual reality part. And yeah, when I come back to this metadata, and when talking about artists, or like I think this metadata model, sometimes there's like a unique ID for one artist. We were also thinking about this in Indigo project. And I think when documenting graffiti, this could not be the best thing, what I said with the investigation, but in the Spray City documentation, I always separated it, like I said in my presentation, all which is definitely painted without permission, has no unique ID for one artist. I try to write down the text, so what it's written there, so that I can search for it, but it doesn't definitely say that this or that piece is painted by one artist or one writer.
Yeah, this kind of course, you know, in real life that, you know, there are places where you can't do much graffiti, otherwise you get arrested. Coming from Belgrade, though, for me, that was like a really foreign concept. You know, it's just going to really put me in the spot where I had to rethink how I understand the building of the archive when I was first time in Stockholm. So it was like, yeah, like everything I do, I try to make publicly available, because I don't think, you know, having an archive makes any sense unless that archive is available. And then if you make it completely available, then you may kind of screw up somebody's life. And that's not really a good way to maintain connection with your community. So, you know, we really, really have to be careful while working online and exposing basically data.
I think this, when you were asking about what would we think, sometimes I get feedback mainly from official sites. Why are you documenting illegal graffiti as well? So maybe I had to separate it a little bit more, but I don't want this separation. So I want to document both. If you document only the legal part, if you document only the illegal part,
either or nothing.
You have to document everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we also had quite some discussions within the Indigo project and even with the ethical commission of the Technical University of Vienna. What do we do with subversive graffiti, right? So we did, for instance, when we have Nazistic or homophobic graffiti, should we also put this online? On the one hand, as a researcher, I would say total transparency, we have what we have and we put this online, but we also don't want to turn into a hub where people that adhere to these IDs would meet up, right? We don't want to turn into a hub for...
Don't want to encourage them.
Yeah, indeed. So a few of the things came out of this. People said, yeah, maybe we should display a kind of warning, like this is subversive or so. I mean, because it's still not online, we still have not, we don't have the unique solution yet. But one of the things that we already agreed on is what Stefan just said. We would only share the pseudonym of the graffiti creator when this thing was created on a legal wall. If not, there will be not even a pseudonym of the creator. Because yeah, this is of course one of the big fears. Not only are we creating a perfect AI training tool, but we are also creating a perfect police enforcement tool, which I don't want to do at the end of the day. This is not why I started this whole thing.
Oh yeah, we do have issue with that.
Just going back, maybe we can, or maybe it's makes sense to also document this, but make it accessible in 20, 30 years back then, when it's not that harmful again for investigations, but for documentation, for having future artists, future researchers who want to investigate on how this and this style developed in that period, and you don't have the artists' names back then, it's quite difficult. So, but if you like lock them for some time and unlock them after some years, maybe as an idea.
Yeah, I mean, one option, of course. But I wanted to ask Vitomir about the ethical issues. Like, while you were preparing exhibitions and documenting some of the sites, like that one in Užita, like, did you come up with certain ethical issues that would kind of be comparable to what we just talked about regarding graffiti? Like that you found something, but you don't feel that it's good to put it online or to present it in a way that it was supposed to be presented because, you know, you just had an ethical issue with it?
No, indirect answer to the question is no. I think that more the question of truth is a topic, especially in archaeological documentation and interpretation of archaeological documentation. So, is this the truth or is it not? Like, who is the judge of what is the, you know, what the history was and is? And in that sense, I also think that I mean, graffitis are a bit different heritage than you know, archaeological heritage, but still there are circumstances in which interpretation is wrong, and you don't know this because maybe only the artist knows what happened in the moment and why certain things went in a certain way. But I don't think that the moral issues about, I think that preserving graffitis, if we want to talk about graffitis, is great indeed, and it should be done. And I think that the whole movement and the way that it kind of, you know, flows through time, I think that the graffitis have time component to it that no other art form has, in a way that, especially because it's a geolocation thing, plus a temporal thing, plus an art thing on top of, you know, an art piece on top of the art piece on top of the art piece, and it's made for public. So that's also a very interesting, you know, thing for with graffitis that separates it from a classical art piece, because, you know, classical artists will kind of paint the work and then, you know, put it for sales, while this is a completely different approach where people are painting things and giving them to public. So in the sense of whether we should scan that and you know, put it in a public space or not, or, you know, how do we approach that? I mean, you are the experts. I'm just an ex-archaeologist, technological freak, but I'll give you one short example about moral kind of approach in, yes, in the moment of the AI revolution. I was on a stage literally like, I don't know, 7 days ago. And I was telling to the audience that I want my virtual avatar that I created for myself and some experiments that we did that looks exactly like me. Like you cannot, I'll show you, like you cannot say that this is not me, and I'm talking like 7 different languages. I want me to teach my little girl that is now 6 years old different things. So I'll be giving her, I don't know, lectures in history, and mom's avatar will be giving her lectures in, I don't know, fashion, and then, you know, like grandma will tell about Asian skills, and it will be crazy. So we can transform education completely with AI that will then respond back to, you know, the question from my child, and then a new video will be generated of me talking to her based on her responses and, you know, pathway through her knowledge development by intelligently responding back, yes, responding back to what she's interested in and so on. So why am I telling you this? Because I was asked on the panel, do I feel morally not threatened, how do you say this? Should I do this? Don't I feel problematic about serving my child something that is not real, especially me? And in that sense, I mean, if you transform that question into everything that we are doing together, and then, you know, like everything, I don't know. I think not. I think that I want my child to learn, you know, cool things from me and my mom, and it doesn't matter what they're generated by AI. But, you know, after the panel, it kind of hit me. It kind of, I was like, damn, you know, like I felt, I was so sure about my view that this is the right way to do it. But then I was like, damn, you know, like, should I do it or should I not do it? You know, like, so the question of whether, you know, it's morally right or wrong to do things, I don't know. Like, I know that I saw archaeologists do the wrong things. I saw them claim the wrong things. I saw them mess up the documentation because they don't know anything, but they want to publish something because it's important for their careers. I can also tell everybody, I'm saying this on panels, pyramids were never built by Egyptians. They were not. If you're, you know, if you have like a little technical skills and understanding, they were not built. And this is the truth.
Background that you actually scanned the mummies in Egypt.
Not in Belgrade. we scanned the mummies in Belgrade. But we did scan the mummies, yes. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, the moral thing, like, and then it's still morally, like, archaeologists come to the stage and they talk about ancient Egyptians building pyramids. Well, they didn't build the pyramids. And still, like, thousands of people and maybe hundreds of thousands of people are giving lectures on this day about ancient Egyptians building pyramids. How is that morally, you know, how these people can, you know, talk for real? Like, I don't know. So.
Yeah.
Very long answer.
Okay, so moral issues. I think when we started documenting and when we started putting everything in virtual reality, there was a bit of a kind of flashback from graffiti communities, like why are you doing that? Who gave you permission to do that? And it's like, what's the point of doing that? And basically what I found, like, okay, was it ethical? Well, in my opinion, again, yes, it was. But what I think was more important was actually to pair virtual reality with the real thing. So without having the proper kind of lectures in the open space, I don't think we should do only virtual reality. So you have to have the real thing paired up with virtual reality, because I think that makes the sense. Because what we experience in the public space is something that cannot be, or yet cannot be transferred into virtual reality, because you don't have smells, you don't have the fresh Belgrade smog, you know, enjoying it while you're walking through the streets.
Not yet.
You don't have...
Maybe in the future.
Exactly, you know, you don't have like all the interactions with the peoples in the street. You don't have, you know, you don't step into poop while you are, you know, walking in Belgrade. There's poop everywhere. So like when I do the tours, I always tell them, please watch your step, and then somebody always has to step in the poop. So this is the element of the real life, of the realness of where graffiti is, because like most of the time you find graffiti and street art in the places which for some reason were not functional as urban spaces, and so they turned into the public toilets, or, you know, the places where you just throw the trash. And so this is also the element of the realness of it, which you cannot skip. There is no much point in skipping it, because this gives you the real idea of what the contemporary city is like, and why is it exactly the way it is, because there is the reason why it functions like that. And so if you transport it and transfer it into virtual reality without certain elements, I don't think that's ethical. But since we don't have opportunity now to do anything, you know, remotely close to what the real reality is, we need to document what we can, but we need to pair it up. So to kind of go back to your thing, maybe it wouldn't be bad for your little girl to have a history lesson by virtual you, but it still had to be, you know, paired up with real you. You know, so you sit together and watch you talking about it, and then you and your little girl discuss, you know, are the pyramids built by the Egyptians or not? You know, so this is my view on that thing.
No discussion about that.
No. But let your kid discuss. You know, that trains the brain. So since we don't have that much time, maybe one more question, or maybe like not even a question. Maybe like your ideas of like the future in your respective fields. Like how do you see maybe like next 2 or 3 years how it's going to develop? Or like maybe for Hat, I would like to actually ask you about the fact that you are a teacher, you're working with new generations, and I actually recently had a tour with people from education system, and I had people from Austria. And then I took them around for a graffiti tour and street art tour. And then I told them, like, yeah, well, you can find my paper that was published for Indigo project that is happening in Vienna. And they're like, Indigo project, yeah, we heard about that. It's like, yeah, it was started by this guy, Geert. And they were like, oh my God, you were like working with Geert. So you are somewhat of a celebrity when it comes to education of the young generations. Like, how do you teach them about virtual reality and ethics and like all of the things we talked about today? Because like you are literally shaping the future. Okay, heavy burden put in on your chest.
I'm not directly teaching about virtual reality and ethics, so I teach photography and 3D modeling at the university. The problem I see, but this is a question I ask myself already since 2 years, how should I change my teaching? And I really don't have the answer, because every time I think I have the answer, the next tool comes out that really makes my attempts futile. And to give you, for instance, an example, my students have to do in the photogrammetric lessons, they have to compute something, and for this they have to look up specific parameters of a camera. Nobody is going to Google anymore, or to all the very specific databases which have all this data logged. And so all the students come up with the wrong answer, because ChatGPT was trained on likely a block entry or whatever where this information was wrong, and they all give me the wrong answer. All of them. And I just say, look here, this is the official spec sheet of the camera, so it's wrong. So I don't know. I think this is very hard, because once you start getting used to these tools, and I was also talking to Stefan about it, they have like this false feeling of authority. So when I talk with ChatGPT about photography, I'm an absolute photographic nerd. I have a lot of old photography books, and a lot of things in photography are only properly explained in these books. But clearly, these books are not scanned, and ChatGPT was not trained on this. And when I ask it very trick questions, it answers with very much authority in a completely wrong way. And I push back, and maybe only after attempt 4 or 5, it says, I'm very sorry, maybe I'm not certain about this.
I have this discussion with Alexander all the time.
And so I don't know how to teach this, because if I allow this, yeah, I can tell them use your brain, but if they don't have any background knowledge about anything whatsoever, how can they then see if what ChatGPT or whatever engine feeds them, if this is correct or not? Because yeah, it speaks with such an authority that it's very hard to question. So I don't know really how to teach. I mean, I also have a very young son, and I think it's the first generation where the parents will not be able to tell what their children can study, because in 10 years the world will look, not in 10 years, in 5 years the world will look completely different. I think the only thing that will more or less survive, I think this is the first revolution where let's say the intellectia are more or less ruled out. Before it was always the industrial revolution, people that were doing manual labor, they were replaced. Now it's more or less the intellectual that gets replaced, and I think what will survive are people that are creating. So if you're creating graffiti, you're fine. If you're a carpenter, you're fine. So this is a very long answer that does not answer your question whatsoever, but the short answer is I don't know how to teach the next generation, because yeah, I really am thinking about this a lot, and I really don't know. I don't know how to deal with it, honestly.
Maybe I can help. Okay. So the platform that we developed, this thing called 3AS, which is Agent as a Service. So we've done a lot of AI prompting, right? So our agents are basically, system prompts that are running agentic scenarios. So what we learned is that AI is super smart, of course, we all know that. And in thinking, literally, like it kind of thinks, I'm not sure how and what, but to run tools, okay? So you tell AI, here are the tools that are at your disposal, and you can find the information, or you can run the tool that you want. So it's not accessing its own kind of knowledge that is stored through training, but it's basically using the intelligence to run the tools that are at his disposal. Or hers disposal. So we're calling her, by the way, a lady. So lady told us. So anyway, why I'm saying this? Because if tools are available to do search through a database of a confirmed data sets, whether it's a camera information or whatever, street art documentation or whatever. So then the AI is using intelligence to run tools that give him results that then he can rely on and say, this is the source material, I can do things. I can process whether it's metadata or something else on the source material that came from search. So I'm not using too much of ChatGPT, except for help things, but I usually use Perplexity and I use Deep Research for ChatGPT, but I always try to give him a web as a source of information, and that's why I'm saying maybe in teaching, maybe we can try to steer students in using AI to use tools. So here are the tools, MCP servers, I don't know if you're familiar with these, but maybe 3IS will be ready in about, I don't know, a month, 2 months. So we can have these tools, and then AIs can, children can start, or students can play with AI, but from the sense of using AI to play around with tooling that gives real data back. And then in that sense, creating big data sets, the big data, verified, storage of information can help, and then AI can navigate it. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I still think this could be a solution, but I think there is still a basic knowledge or understanding of framework necessary for the student or whoever that uses it to know, okay, these are reliable sources, and also if I get an answer back, to know, okay, is this plausible or not? Because I can, for instance, not start saying tomorrow, okay, I want to be a cardiac surgeon. There are some good sources, they should teach me how to operate on a heart. I mean, yeah, nobody would come to me and say, yeah, maybe can you operate my heart? What we are doing is not so fundamental, but still, if my students don't know anything about photogrammetry, I would not trust the 3D models that they would give to me because they don't have the general picture. And I think that one of the challenges lies that to give students still a general understanding, maybe not all the details that we had to learn the hard way, but the general framework of how things are working. For instance, if you study art history, and you don't know the...
You're screwed.
Yeah, first of all, but you also don't know the big periods and how, for instance, Renaissance was in Italy different like that it was in Belgium. So things like this, yes, you can ask ChatGPT, but if you don't even know it was different, you will not even ask this question.
Yeah, true. Right, interesting discussions, but then I would, good that you got the mic, because I have the last question for you, and you wanted to say something before I started talking to Vitomir.
What will be changing in my field?
Like that, and I have the last question, which would be like, how did this work in Indigo change the way that you talk about graffiti and street art in your tours? Because I know you do tours. They're also quite educational. And like, how did that change? Because for me, it really changed the way I think about real reality and real streets since I started working in virtual reality. So I was just interested, how did it, or it maybe it didn't, I don't know.
I think there was no change in looking like, I think these are two different things, like street art and graffiti writing. Some people are doing both, but I think it's still a little bit separated. But it depends on the audience, I think. Yeah. So the audience of street art is more not that specific than on graffiti writing, I think, still. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know if there was a change by Indigo in my thinking, but I think no.
Yeah, for me, it became quite obvious that when we are in real reality, I have to remind people that it's real reality, that this might change tomorrow, and that we actually have to think about how we use the public space. Because the more we are in virtual reality space, the less we think how we can use the public space, and hence our freedoms are getting cut down in the real life and real space. So for me, it changed in that way that I keep reminding people, you have to understand that public space is yours. You have to use it. You have to navigate it. Like, you can't be really angry with graffiti writers that they are using the public space. Like, everybody's like, oh, you know, they're destroying the city. No, they're showing you that public space has to be used because it's yours. Unless you use it, somebody else is going to use it. And the less and less you use it, you're going to have less freedom to use it. So, like, while you are wasting your time on social media and in virtual reality, somebody's out there restricting your freedom in the real space. So for me, it became like really, really important to remind people that they kind of really have to take agency back. And then kind of made me rethink the graffiti and street art and like the actual service that graffiti writers and street artists are doing for us by reminding us, you know, you have to do this. Not only them, but you as well. Right? Okay. Nobody else to add? This was like maybe a good point to end on. We are right on time. I can't believe it, but there it is. So thank you all again for participating. And after this set, we're going to have a book presentation by Stefan, where Alexander is going to join us, and we're going to have a little presentation and then a bit of a chat. Alexander and Stefan are going to talk about the book. And that would be all for today. So please stay for the last section in our presentations. Thank you again.